Hi and welcome to another episode of English in Britain with me. I'm Ryan Aston, an English teacher from the south of England. As always, please support me by clicking like and subscribing to my channel. I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and if you want further conversation practice, then just send me an email at ryanaston.ec@gmail.com. Thank you. Okay, so this week in Perfect Your English, we are going to look at the difference between the verbs to say and to tell. To say. This focuses on the words being spoken, literally what is said. So, for example, John said that he will not buy a new car. Whereas to tell shows a message or information being passed from one person to another. So, for example, John told his wife that he will not buy a new car. Can you see the first example looks at the words that John speaks. The second example looks at the message that is being passed from John to his wife. Generally, tell uses an indirect object, but say doesn't. So, I say no every time he asks. Or I tell him no every time he asks. Can you see that tell has that indirect object, which is him, or it could be her or you, whereas say has the subject, which is I, but it doesn't have that indirect object. Tell cannot be used without an indirect object. However, say can be used with an indirect object if you add to. I say no to him every time he asks. So you see, it would be incorrect to say I say him, but if you say I say to him, then it is correct. If you follow the order tell plus an object plus the preposition to plus a verb, then that is what we use for orders or commands. So, for example, I tell him to wait for me. The past of say is said. I said that I would do it if I have the time. Now, that is a correct sentence in written English. However, in spoken English, it is very common to drop the word that and just say, I said I would do it. The past of tell is told. I told him that I would do it. But again, in speech, it's very common to lose the word that and just say, I told him I would do it. That only comes between two separate subject and verbs. So in the first example, I said that I would do it if I have the time. You have one subject and verb, which is I said, and another subject and verb, which is I would do it. So that comes between the two. I said that yes is incorrect, as there is only one subject verb, which is I said. So you wouldn't use that in this situation. I said yes would be the correct way to say it. So let's have a test, a few examples. I suggest you pause the video when I show you each question so you can think about the answer yourself and then check the answer is correct. So here we could have I said you or I told you that I will come tonight. So in this example, which would be the correct word to use? told. I told you that I will come tonight. Remember that said would need the preposition to with an indirect object pronoun to be correct. So you could say, I said to you that I will come, but we don't have to, so it has to be told. It has to be the verb to tell. I say or I tell that we should leave now. I say that we should leave now, or I tell that we should leave now, which would be correct. Say. I say that we should leave now. Here there is no indirect object, and remember the verb to tell requires an indirect object. I like to say jokes, or I like to tell jokes. Well, here you might say, okay, like the example before, there's no indirect object, so it must be I like to say jokes. But I included this one because it is an exception to the rule that the verb to tell requires an indirect object. And that's because in expressions like to tell jokes and to tell stories, these are just fixed expressions and they will always be tell. As I said, these are a couple of exceptions when an indirect object pronoun is not necessary, but can be used if you want. So you could say, I like to tell him jokes. So now we go on to correct the mistakes. A similar idea, I'm going to show you a sentence, pause the video, identify the mistake and correct it on your own, and then play the video and I will give you the answer. Is not important. Yes, the mistake here is that there is no it. In English, verbs require a subject pronoun. So it could be it is not important, or you could contract it is and say it's not important, or if you prefer you can contract is and not and have it isn't important. It doesn't matter which you use. The important thing here is that it has to be it is. You can't just say is on its own. He told off me for being late. It should say he told me off for being late. Now I know phrasal verbs is a big topic and it confuses a lot of speakers of English as a foreign language, and maybe I'll do a course on phrasal verbs sometime in the future. But the important thing here is when you have a phrasal verb with a pronoun, the pronoun must come between the verb and the preposition. I'm looking for a place to have dinner tonight. Yes, it should say I am looking for a place to have dinner tonight. So the verb to be, I am, you are, he is, she is, and so on, must always be used before the ing form of the verb. There is an exception to this though. Well, it's not really an exception, but it's when we use the gerund. If, for example, if you say running is good for you, or I like running. And that's because in these sentences, the word running is actually a noun, not the verb. In the first example, the verb is to be, so running is good for you, is the verb. In the second example, I like running. Again, running is the noun, the verb is to like. So now on to rather British slang, and this week we're going to learn the word gutted. Now, gutted means devastated. So it's when you want to exaggerate how bad you feel about something that's happened or a situation. His girlfriend left him, he's gutted. The word on its own is often used as an exclamation, which means, oh no, you must be devastated. So look at this example. I tried to buy some tickets for the concert, but they were sold out. Gutted. Now, this is used a lot among younger people. Older people won't say this very much, but when somebody tells you something bad that's happened, then you can say gutted. It's normally used in a humorous way and it's quite casual. So I would say that it isn't appropriate when somebody really has some bad news. So if somebody tells you their grandfather has died, for example, it's not appropriate to say gutted. So that's all for Perfect Your English this week. Let's move on to the next section, History, Food and Culture of Great Britain. So today I want to look at the subject of meeting British people and making conversation. Here I'm just going to give you a few tips and suggestions for what to do and what to say when you meet someone and how to have a basic conversation in any situation. So when you meet someone for the first time, first of all in Britain we shake hands. It's not common to kiss or to hug. Some people do kiss, it's rare, so if somebody kisses you then okay, if that's what you do in your country then that's fine, but generally you should go to shake somebody's hand when you meet them for the first time. Just say your name and nice to meet you. So for example, if I'm meeting you, I would shake your hand and I would say, hi, I'm Ryan, nice to meet you. When you meet someone for the second or third time, generally men will shake hands with each other. Multiple women or men and women don't shake hands, hug or kiss. Remember, the first time you meet someone it's very common to shake hands. After that, men will shake each other's hands every time they meet, but just men. Women won't shake hands with someone every time they meet. Sometimes, again, they may kiss, but the most common thing is just to say hello and don't make any physical contact with that person. I've put here that hugging and kissing is acceptable in a social situation such as a dinner party, but not in the office with a work colleague or when you bump into someone you don't know very well on the street. So when I say to you, it's not common to hug or kiss somebody, if somebody's invited you to a party at their house, then in that situation it's okay to give them a kiss when you arrive to say hello. But if you bump into somebody on the street, if you see a colleague at work, again, no physical contact, just say hello. So topics of conversation. Now, weather is the number one topic of conversation in Britain. Learn how to talk about what the weather is like today, what it was like yesterday, and what it will be like tomorrow, and you will have hours of useful conversation. British people talk about the weather all the time, and it doesn't matter if it's at work, if you're talking to a salesperson on the phone, or if you're talking to someone at the party. I can guarantee you the weather will always come up as a topic of conversation. So when you're learning English, it is so important that you learn how to talk about the weather, you learn all the vocabulary for talking about the weather, because you will need it a lot in Britain. On Mondays, or even Tuesdays, we will normally talk about what we did or what somebody did the last weekend. For Fridays, maybe Thursdays, we will talk about what we're doing or what somebody is doing the next weekend. Generally in Britain, we don't like the week. We don't like to work. Not many people like going to work. So we spend the whole working week, either thinking about the weekend just gone or thinking about the next weekend. So apart from the weather, the weekend is another big conversation topic. So let's look at a typical conversation. A conversation that you will have several times a day. Hi, I'm John. I'm Will's friend. Hi John, I'm Jane. Nice to meet you. Beautiful day today, isn't it? Yes, it is. Much better than yesterday. I know, it didn't stop raining all day. Well, hopefully this sunny weather lasts until Sunday. Yes, I hope so. Are you doing anything nice this weekend? I've invited some friends over for a barbecue in the garden. Oh well, hopefully it doesn't start raining again then. Knowing my luck, it'll be thunderstorms all day. What about you? Are you doing anything nice? And so on. They probably continue to talk about the weekend and the weather, and then they'll probably talk about what they did the last weekend. But you see, when you meet someone, if you can ask them what they're doing at the weekend or what they did at the weekend, and you can comment on the weather or what the weather's going to be like, then this will give you hours and hours of conversation in Great Britain. Please show your support and help me create more videos by clicking like and subscribing. Leave a comment if you have a question or suggestion for future lessons. And if you would like one-on-one tuition over Skype, please email me at ryanaston.ec@gmail.com.